Oh, and you've got a friend too.
I've got a few friends. Yeah, I was umming and ahhing whether or not I'd get away with referring to them as like Bianca Del Rio and Lady Bunny, but I'm a little apprehensive about going that far because I might face their wrath. Everyone, start your engine! Because we have two fabulous guests today. We are thrilled to be joined by Jinkx Monsoon and Major Scales. Hello there, both.
Hi.
How are you both doing?
Hello.
We're decent.
Yeah, we just got in yesterday, so we're jet lagging in the best way.
We both did that thing where we went to bed really, really early last night and then woke up at 4 a.m. like ready to start our day, and then forced ourselves to go back to sleep, and now we're just in the zombie mode until we get some like local food in us and we acclimate to the British climate.
I mean, I was going to ask where you are, but I think there's a bit of a clue on the wall behind.
Yeah, Brigton.
Not. I don't know if you're familiar. It's a very small town.
Little seaside country town. So, Jinkx, I'm going to start with you. It's kind of monsoon season writ large at the moment, with everything that's going on. So how's it been for you with everything that's going on? We've obviously got All Stars, and now we've got Together Again. How's it been for you at the moment in this whirlwind of Jinkx mania?
I just really like working. I really like working and performing. So when I was younger, I think I really liked the attention, and I did it. I was constantly seeking approval and loved everyone talking about me. Nowadays, like 10 years later, all I like is working a lot, being on stage as much as possible. So it's fun seeing that people are enjoying All Stars, and it's exciting that people are, like clamoring about my recent successes on All Stars. But I'm just ready to parlay that into just working as much as possible and getting as much of my shows booked around the world as possible, because that's what really makes me the happiest.
Well, on that note, now we've got that little bit of housekeeping out of the way. We're here today to talk about Together Again, which you're in the last leg of the UK tour. You're going to be coming to various cities around the UK this week, including Birmingham on Wednesday. So tell us a bit about the show. It's not your first rodeo, so to speak. You've done shows together before. So tell us a bit about this latest Major and Jinkx collaboration.
Yeah, this one, we were just discussing this the other day. This is our 5th or 6th tour through the UK, through your lovely country. And this time we're bringing in a show. This takes place in the not too distant future. Jinkx and myself playing our older versions of ourselves, coming back for a reunion show for the first time in decades. And it's kind of a part of us reminiscing about our past, but also making up a past that doesn't exist yet.
Yeah, it's a hypothetical retrospective, because it kind of we kind of fill in the gaps of what's happened between 2022 and 2065. So we're looking back on aspects of our career that hasn't happened yet. So it's very tongue-in-cheek. It's very satirical and self-loathing, and it's kind of it's our response to what it was like being an artist during the pandemic and a live entertainer without the ability to entertain live.
And you mentioned the pandemic. There is an element of art imitating life here, isn't there? Because it's about your characters coming together and having a reunion. But this show was originally meant to take place a couple of years back before a certain pandemic happened.
Yeah, and vice versa, because we wrote this show maybe like 3 years ago. And like you said, we were supposed to bring it on tour actually the year that the pandemic began, and we've revisited the script and punched it up a little bit and made some fine tuning and adjustment to kind of acknowledge what's transpired in the last 2 years, but not in a heavy-handed way. It very much just informed the satire that already existed in the show, and kind of pushed it forward another step in as far as what we're commenting on.
And with Together Again, unlike say the Vaudevillians, where you had the characters of Dr. Dan and Kitty, this is your characters of Jinkx and Major. So how much more perhaps truthful to yourselves is this show? How much more of yourselves is kind of injected into it?
Well, it's funny because this is kind of like a reverse version of that show. It's an alternate universe of Vaudevillians playing ourselves in the future. I think they're both pretty true to who we are as, you know, ourselves, just taken up several notches of exaggeration. That's who we play on stage. So would you say these are more truthful to us?
I would say these playing ourselves in our 70s is the characters are very honest because they're kind of based off of our insecurities. Yes. You know, it's kind of like taking anything that we could possibly be insecure about and personifying them. Because Jinkx is kind of delusional and she's kind of full of herself, and she's kind of living in this fantasy world where she's the biggest star of all, even though there's evidence to the contrary right in front of her. And Major is just like kind of crusted over with bitterness and resentment. So it's like taking any insecurities we might have of who we are now and personifying them as the 70-year-old monstrous version of those insecurities.
And you say it's kind of it's all heightened and it's all dialed up. I have to ask, how true is that of the dynamic between yourselves? Because Kitty as a character and Jinkx on stage, they can be quite, I don't want to say hostile, but they can be quite frosty towards Major and Dr. Dan in places, can't they? So Major, how true is that in real life?
No, it's just everything of ourselves. I'm sitting right next to her, so I can't say
I don't want to cause the breakup before you.
No, I mean, we lived together for almost a decade, and in many aspects of our lives, we are an old married couple. So I think really it was just taking the truth of that relationship and then pushing it a million degrees upward and making it more, visceral and physical. We do get physically violent, I guess, a few times on stage. So yeah, it's really just, taking those things and putting them. We really do like to play the worst versions of ourselves in a lot of our shows. And
we get it all out on stage, so we don't take it into our daily life.
Yeah. I highly recommend that for people just in general. It's good counseling, good therapy.
What's funny is I think on stage, I have the domineering personality, but off stage, I don't think either one of us is too domineering to the other one, but we're definitely like a Bert and Ernie, Ren and Stimpy duo, like at home, I'm just kind of the dummy who walks around and makes messes, and Major's the one who just kind of silently begrudges it.
Now, on that note, you've not just spoken quite candidly about destigmatizing mental health and issues surrounding mental health. You've created art about it, songs like Cartoons and Vodka and, the Ginger Snapped and all of that. How important do you think now it is to be still having those conversations, particularly post-pandemic and particularly in the world of performing and, creativity, where a lot of people are going back on stage or are putting themselves before people after a period of kind of more, being more insular or maybe shut off from the world?
Well, I think it's just, it's important to always feel like we have the freedom to discuss those things, whatever's going on, because I think we're realizing how much damage has been done throughout decades and centuries of the conditioning society in this way of we're not allowed to talk about certain things, and we have to suffer through those things silently. And the more and more we talk about those things openly, the more we're able to break down that conditioning and break down the kind of like symptoms of repression and stigmatization that we've experienced. And that's coming from a 34-year-old and like living in an age where we are starting to have those conversations. But I think a big part of having this conversation is like we've got to make more resources for people to have conversations with trained professionals, I think, because now we're at this point where everyone's just kind of shouting their feelings into the void, which can be cathartic, but I think we're now experiencing this thing where we're all taking to social media to talk about our issues, and that's not a good place to try to find the answers to your issues.
Twitter doesn't have a lot of those answers.
Yeah. So I'm glad that the conversation is happening, but I also want people now to think about, we've been through this collective worldwide trauma. We're all like kind of even more steeped in our phones and our social medias as our means to communicate with people around the world, since we haven't been able to travel or leave our homes for so long. Now we need to take that energy and take it to places where we can actually be helped by trained professionals. So that we're not just all kind of slogging through the mire of the social media verse where everyone's just kind of shouting at each other all the time.
I completely agree.
I'd say, we don't put together our shows to have any huge message. For the most part, we want people to have fun and hear some good music and have a laugh. But at the same time, with Ginger Snapped and this show, I feel like we're still managing to address some pretty deep issues if you dig into it, and it's been nice to be able to, with these shows, touch on those things a little bit, have people think about them, but also be able to laugh about it.
Give a moment of respite and levity after, that collective worldwide trauma I mentioned. But this show is very, very tongue-in-cheek. Together Again is very, very tongue-in-cheek. And we even kind of make a joke about how it's not as deep as other shows that we've done. But it's deep.
It's still personal to us. Yeah.
But like you say, I mean, comedy in particular, I mean, Vaudevillians, and I haven't seen Together Again yet. I'm seeing it on Wednesday, but from having seen some of your previous shows, I think there's something that can be, like you say, almost subliminally cathartic about comedy, where obviously it's very bonkers, it's very off the wall, it's hilarious, and you've got the music, but there is that kernel of truth that runs through it, which kind of underpins everything. So I think that definitely comes across in the shows of yours I've seen, and I presume, as you say, the same's true of Together Again.
Yeah, well, I think part of it is we don't even have to think about how to do that, because Major and I have been writing our work very personally for so long. Major writes all of our original music and writes it based off a lot of stories that I give him, like you mentioned, Cartoons and Vodka, and the whole Ginger Snapped album is original music that Major wrote based off of life experiences that I've had. So, he's taking things that happened in my life putting it to music and writing it specifically for me to then sing. And that's kind of the beauty of our collaboration is, you know, having someone who knows me so well and writing music specifically for me to perform. So there's so much honesty and so much candor in everything that we do that we don't really have to like strive for, you know, telling some big story, because there's truth throughout everything we do. So we focus on writing the jokes and giving the audience something entertaining, but writing from a place that's completely honest and candid. So that even if we're telling like dick jokes and absurd humor,
they're personal. They mean something.
Yeah, and you get the sense of this is us sharing a part of our lives with the audience without us having to beat you over the head with it.
And on that note, as we've said, this is your 5th UK tour. It's the latest in a long line of collaborations and projects you've done together. Major, I was wondering if you could just tell us basically kind of where the Jinkx and Major story started and what it was about the two of you that kind of, you know, drew yourselves together as artists and as creatives.
Oh goodness, the story, tale as old as time. Well, we both met each other in university. Our freshman
college.
Yeah.
I don't know. He's translating for you.
And we bonded originally because we were two of the few out gay people in our class,
which was astounding at an acting school.
Yeah, I don't know how that happened. We were at school in theater and we were two of the only we could find. But yeah, we just, I think originally just latched on because of that, but then realized we had all of these shared interests in media and music that we sort of latched on to. We started doing shows together for the school's drag competitions. Jinkx needed someone to play the piano for a show. I played the piano, but I'd never done drag before, so I provided the music. She provided the makeup and look. And we sort of took things from there, minus the drag part for me. We found my strengths and we worked with them. But yeah, we started writing together fairly early on, and the Vaudevillians was the first real show that came out of that through years of just, you know, doing little pieces together and putting together these characters. And it was, you know, once Drag Race happened, we were able to bring our dynamic to a larger world stage, and I guess the rest is history.
Well, on the subject of history, a lot of the shows have a kind of like reflective quality, don't they? And obviously, Jinkx, a lot of your iconic performances are of, you know, whether it's Edith Bouvier-Beale or Judy Garland most recently. What is it for yourselves about that quality of reflection and hindsight and looking back that has such appeal, or that kind of resonates with you?
I think for me, it's just kind of always feeling like I didn't really fit in with contemporary culture. You know, as a kid and as a teenager, I just didn't really resonate with what was popular amongst my peers. And so as a young kid, I was always reading Greek mythology and finding other things to entertain myself because I didn't get along with the other boys my age. And then as a teenager, I don't know, I was kind of a queer misfit outcast, and all of us queer misfit outcasts were obsessed with like Rocky Horror and Queen and all these cultural icons from the 70s and 80s. And I don't know, that just kind of set me on a path where I've always been about 20 years behind my peers. And that works for me. And in that, you know, like I'm one of the, you know, like I'm doing something that not everyone else is doing only because it was already done like 20 or 30 years ago.
But there does seem to have been something of a cultural shift, particularly since Drag Race, and for all of its flaws, you know, the digital age and social media. Do you recognise that? Do you feel that things that maybe even, 20 years ago were kind of lost to yesteryear or kind of disregarded, and maybe getting a bit of a reappraisal and kind of being valued a bit more now?
Well, I think two things. Like, one, culture is often cyclical. Like, we can see in arts and in fashion that lots of things come back many times. And they might be revised or revamped, but we see cultural influences coming around on the carousel multiple times. But I also think in this digital age that now that there's ways to find anything. Like, you can think of a reference from a movie 50 years ago and someone's probably already put it up online. People are making like modern day memes out of old school references. I just kind of think with so much of cultural history at our fingertips, it kind of just all abides by the rule of, if it's funny, it's funny. If it's interesting, it's interesting. It doesn't matter where it's from or how old it is. If it works, it works. So
definitely, absolutely, and there's absolutely that timeless quality to the Vaudevillians and Together Again. And I have to say, before we go, Know It All. Your new single that you've both worked on. Just tell us a quick bit about that. I will say I was going to start my intro doing that incredible opening note of Know It All, but then I thought, no, that's going to set us off on completely the wrong tone. So
do it in pre-production or post-production. You'll put that in.
It'll need a lot of auto-tune for me. But yeah, tell us a little before we go about Know It All, because that's just released.
Yeah, that just came out, and we're excited about the spate of music that's coming out that we've been working on. We've had this idea for our latest album for so long, and we're finally getting to put it together and finally introduce it to people. So that's really just the first single coming out of this whole concept album that we're putting together.
Fabulous.
Yeah. Know It All, I think, is... it's a great example of our collaboration because it's very ska inspired. It's got a throwback garage band quality to it, and the lyrics are brilliant, and it was written specifically for my singing voice, and the content of the song, like the what it's about, really resonates with me, and people are already responding to it super well. It's funny, we've always worked in music, but it wasn't a big part of my storyline in season 5. So it's taken people years to know that that I even do music and that Major and I, lots of people are kind of surprised with our first single of this new project. They're like, oh, y'all are doing music now. And it's like, actually, we already have 2 full feature albums out, and you've got some catching up to do. So.
Not that there's any resentment there.
That genuinely surprises me, though. That's probably because I'm quite, I'm like this close to like Drag Race and both of your histories. But yeah, one of the first things I think when somebody says Jinkx is singing, to be honest. But again, that's probably because I'm familiar with the Vaudevillians and your guys' work. So thank you ever so much for spending time chatting to us today. I'm just going to close with one very quick fire question. We are things we enjoy, so we are about celebrating our passions and things in life. Give me one thing that you would say you enjoy above all, preferably within a PG-13 rating.
Video games.
Oh yeah, cult movie musicals. If you haven't seen Voyage of the Rock Aliens, give it a listen.
There you go. There's a direct recommendation. I haven't, and I'm quite good at my cult films, and I haven't seen that. So.
Oh yeah, Pia Zadora in a starring performance.
Fabulous. Well, I will certainly check it out, and I will be checking out Together Again at the Alexandra Birmingham Theatre on Wednesday. Jinkx, Major, thank you so much for your time, and all the best with the rest of the tour.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Have a great day.